Three, two, one. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
And I'm Collins. Nice to meet y'all.
That is Educated Collins. Remember, Merps is still out on hiatus in case you missed the last two podcasts. And we'll be having a lot more guests, and so I figured we'd start with old recurring guest, Educated Collins. This must be your
supposed to say the best, but okay.
Oh, sorry. The absolute best podcast partner that we could ask for, which is Educated Collins, and he's an Infinite player on Leaderboard regular in the Twitch Rivals event. He came in second to me and Tex. He won the event before that. So very, very, pedigreed arena player from way back as well. Welcome to the podcast again, Collins.
Thank you. Glad to be back. Always good to see you guys and talk and chat.
Yeah. So we're here, and I did a huge 2-hour rant last time by myself, and it became very clear to me that I am not the best person to control myself when it comes to doing a podcast about Hearthstone Arena. So we're gonna get a little more flow going here and talk a little bit more about the meta on the ground, and also about like these new cards, right? Because we're in Rise of Shadows. So I just want to set the groundwork and talk about what happened in the last week in terms of the patch that came in, right? So we were in this rogue meta, and the initial bucketing was pretty bad. Blizzard made an update, and the big thing that they did to try to fix the meta is to micro adjust rogue offering rates until they are down. So they micro adjusted all the good rogue cards down so they're not offered as much, and as a result, I think the results are pretty they're pretty stark. It's been what, like 3 days? 4 days since then?
Yeah, it hasn't been that long.
And there's probably old decks still floating around now. There are definitely rogue decks for the last few days that are still floating around that are old rogue decks. But now on HS Replay, rogue has gone down from like a 59% win rate to 50.7. So Blizzard has been successful in that. Unfortunately, I think Rogue was so out there that Blizzard really just like very upfront said we didn't adjust anything else in terms of micro adjusts. So we're going to like wait and see what happens after we adjust Rogue down. So unfortunately, Warrior is still 41%, which is better than 39, but still not great. And the new king of Arena is the old second place in Arena, Warlock, which went up from about 53% win rate to right now 55.6% and rising. So
yes, nothing really changed. It's just that Rogue went down and everything else moved up a bunch.
So how would you describe this new meta compared to the old meta?
It's better.
I would agree. It does feel better.
That's not saying much. I mean, it's you fix a problem, but then there's a new problem, right? So, you deal with the obvious like problem in the scene. Rogue was too strong. Lackey is a little bit too powerful, too prominent. Right? They deal with that, but then they forgot to deal with Abyss Soldier. Like, oh yeah, that card. We knew it was strong. It was the reason Warlock was the strongest in the past. We did not learn from that. And we'll just make it strong again. So it kind of just shows that they don't really have a dedicated arena specialist or anything on their team. They're just kind of trying things and hoping it works. Only issues. I mean, I could go out into this, but
I'm sure we will later. But yeah, basically, I think you're right when you say like, hey, it's better. It's objectively like it just feels better. But it's still not great because we're now Warlocks instead of Rogue. Rogue felt really hopeless though. Like Rogue
it did.
Really bad.
It was so damning. Like you'd be joking. Oh, we fought a Rogue. I guess we lost. Yeah. You're legit putting yourself on the concede button. Just and then turn 3 rows around. They coin the mixtures. Okay, now I can concede. All right, we're good. Let's move. So it's better than that.
Yeah, Rogue takes you off the board in the beginning, and then like continues to take you off the board randomly through stuff like Vendetta, and then like has a late game as well, and then has a crap ton of RNG in it. Warlock at least has very little RNG, which is nice, and they're pretty stable in the beginning. Like you know what they're doing the first few turns, and eventually they abyssal you or Fellfire you or some combination of like Shadow Flame you, whatever, right? Doom you. You're just off the board at a certain point. But you have some strategies against it, right? You could push harder in the beginning. That's a pretty consistent way of doing pretty well against Warlock. You kind of see the stuff coming, and you get a few turns to do stuff before the stuff that comes. So we're
play
in a
4 health minions.
Yeah, play 4 health minions. Huge key. I can't tell you the number of times facing Warlocks now where I'm just going to always play as if you have an Abyssal, and if you instead have a Fellfire Potion, I will lose. Because that's a decent deal, right? Like, there's more Abyssals running around than Hellfire Potions. And sometimes you can't play around both. So yeah, okay. We'll get deeper into like specific cards on ROS or whatever. But if you're just watching and you were like last time, you were either haven't gotten in the arena yet, and you're like, oh, this sounds terrible, I don't want to get in yet. It's still not really safe in the arena, but it's less like silly bad. It's more just regular bad, kind of like in a normal bad meta, not like you remember the hunter meta from like a year and a half ago, like
with
the
spell
rogue
stones?
with spell stones. The rogue one was like even worse than the hunter meta. Like that's how bad we got.
Yeah, that is a good point.
And now
that was pretty bad.
Yeah, and now we're kind of back at the hunter meta, where it was still really bad, except now it's Warlock. But like you kind of see it coming, right? Hunter comes out on turn 5. This doesn't even come out till turn 7. Hunters has no initiative. This does have initiative, so it's kind of more like turn 6-y. But whatever, it's similar, right? It's like a little better than that hunter meta, so it's kind of playable. Yeah. So how are you? Like Collins, for you, those of you who don't know, Collins has been a very good and consistent control player for a long time, and now we are in a not control meta, but Warlock is still a pretty control class. So how has like generally control been working in Rise of Shadows? And
in general, I would say this is probably one of the toughest metas, at least for me right now. Maybe because I haven't like practiced it too much, but there's a ton of early game right now, so at least there's ton of options for early game with Zombie Chow coming back and things like that. So you have to be a little bit on the board, because it's very easy to get in the case where you can just lose like turn 7, turn 8. So it's harder to go unless you're picking a class that has tools to come back, so priest, whatever. But if you're just picking any regular class and you don't have any early game, you're gonna die. So I've been trying to find the balance, and it's a work in progress.
What would you say if you're a control leaning player? Let's set aside like a pure control play, because we were talking earlier before, and you mentioned things like you got a 12 with a control priest, which is not something you could draft every time, but when you can draft it, it's still super powerful, right? At least I assume. I've never tried to draft a control priest in this meta, but my priests have also sucked. So
I've all the priests I've drafted, I haven't gotten a non-control priest.
Oh, so. Okay. See, this is going the completely different way. I haven't even tried to go for a control priest. Dragonfire is offered like a little less than once per run. So if you only have one Dragonfire, or you don't really have a Dragonfire, let's do priest, because Warlock is kind of easy to draft control. Everyone kind of knows. You're actually bombarded with like double-sided board clears, so that you almost have to skip them even if you are control. But for priest, what's your
someone in my chat told me they were offered 8 abyssals.
That sounds about right. I'm
okay, all right.
I've gotten to the point where there was one Warlock run where I drafted 2 Void Callers really early on, and then I was offered no Dread Infernos and no Abyssals. And that run did not go very well. But that's how confident you should be with these like Abyssals and like stuff, right? Like you could just kind of assume you're going to get a whole bunch of them. But that's not the case in Priest, right? Priest has not anywhere near that favorable offering odds on the control side. So how do you build a priest to do control if you have like just like a limited amount of normal, what I would consider like board cleary control cards?
Okay, the really good thing with priests right now is that they have really, really strong early game options, right? So it's not that you just ignore all the early game. The early game you pick up is really, really strong. So there's Talon Priest back, lots of 3/4s with good Battle Cries, Death Rattles, and then you also have the Shade Quill, the new 4/7. If you pick up a couple of those, and then you have maybe like a couple 2 drops, you don't really need that much. If you just have really good 3s and really good 4s, that should bridge the gap so that you can hit the late game where you can start hitting the Temple Enforcers, you can start hitting the Fists. I call them whatever they're called.
We all call them Fists.
Okay, you start dropping the fist. You hit a
you just start
mind
fisting your
controller.
opponents.
That is the joke. That I don't know if Blizzard like realized that this was gonna, people are gonna call that, by its name. But that's what they've done. But you just start fisting your opponents.
I don't even think Blizzard realized that fist was gonna be enough of a thing that we would be saying it as fisting your opponents. I mean, to be fair, I underrated fist.
Did you?
Yeah,
I didn't.
No,
I knew.
I went in a different direction on that, and because
I underrated Miscreant.
Oh, ooh.
Just the worst. So I messed up too.
But yeah, I was stuck in a meta where there was like more big stuff, and I was like, Fist ain't so good. But now looking at the actual big stuff that's available, it's like Fist kind of just matches up really well against all the other big stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Blizzard bucketed that on a slightly lower place, and it didn't go up. So, but before we get to Fist, because I want to talk about Fist after this, but going back to Priest and playing Control, how many 2-drops or 1-drops do you draft if you're trying to go for a more Control Priest in this meta? Because before you draft none, right? Or like very few. Are you doing 2-drops now? Or for like Priest, are you still just starting on 3 with the 3/4s?
You still don't really need it. The thing is, you tend to get 2s automatically. There's a lot of like the way the buckets are set up right now, there's a lot of 2-drops that are like better than all the other options. So you just end up like having like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 in your deck without really trying to draft 2s. So I still don't really pick up 1s. Still, if you're gonna go Control, drawing a 1 in the late game is just, unless it's Cleric, it's really, it hurts, right? But you just tend to get 2s anyways, regardless, just because the way the buckets are, they're a lot better than the options you're choosing. So it's not that I'm looking for 2s, but I do end up having 2s in there.
Okay, so you have enough 2s, but not like probably not like 5 or 6, more like 3 or 4.
No, yeah, maybe like 2 or 3 or 4. Yeah, like just like if you draw it early, you're like, oh, well, it's over.
Right, good. How many 3s do you have? I'm just trying to download how to play a Control Priest in this meta, because my priestess suck so far. So I'm trying to get
just a really good amount. You want to make sure that you never skip 3 and 4.
Okay, so something like 6 3s, 7 3s.
Yeah, 6, 7 seems okay.
Okay,
and if they have really good effects, that's what makes it like really effective. Like if the thing about Control is you never want to have a card, if you can help it, where if you top deck this, you're super sad. Yeah, that's the real key. So if you have that's like Glimmerroot is like my favorite priest card. It's a 3-drop, inherently, but anytime you play, you're never sad, because it always does its job no matter when you play it. So those are like the premium type of cards in Control, where there's always a turn and always a use for it.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a similar drafting style to how you draft Control before the rotation, except you're just kind of pushed into a few more 2-drops than you
more
did
early
before.
game, yeah.
And I mean, you're just offered a less card draw than you were before, so you're kind of being shifted with everyone else to be a little faster, but your philosophy is still the same. Because
I would say so.
Yeah, and as Priest, like you said, you have these powerful 3-drops that are defensively statted that other classes don't. So while other classes used to rely on like lone champs and stuff like that, and it's all falling apart now a bit more to try to start on 3 without 2, as Priest you can still do that because you have a bunch of 3/4s, and those can anchor you without 2s. If
you drop a 2 and then you drop a Talon Priest and then you laugh.
Yeah.
And then you drop a Shade Quill and then you laugh even more.
Oh god.
Man, it's and then you drop another tell. It just gets stupid. So
Yeah. Okay. So that's a way to play control. I really want to bring that perspective in because like I generally play less control, although I've been playing Warlock a bit more like tempo and then with a lot of board clears to control after that. So I kind of play a maybe like a on the board but also board cleary control way of Warlock. But outside of that, I pretty much don't play control. So I want to make sure the listeners get the control experience and know that like priest control still works. Like I wouldn't even have thought that priest control would still be like okay in this meta with the offering odds.
you know what version of control is really nice?
What?
Hunter.
Well, I
Hunter
was just
control.
saying that. I was actually not like control. I would go with like slow mid range, right? But look at the hunter cards that came in. The two hugely like ridiculously good hunter cards that we literally now rate. So we also have as an update, we have a Lightforge tier list update that kicked in. I want to say on Friday, maybe on Thursday. Yeah, probably like late Thursday or early Friday. I forgot exactly when. But it had an update that affected a lot of removals and things to be appropriately done for this meta. Anyway, it affected Hunter somewhat significantly, and Marked Shot and Unleash the Beast, which were top cards, are now far and away, like more than 10 points ahead of the other cards, the two best Hunter cards in the game.
What about Call of the Wild?
Call of the Wild, we have a little lower. It's a 130 because it's like
Still
9
good.
mana.
Still good.
It's still very good.
Yeah.
It's still like a low premium card, but it's not like Unleash the Beast and Mark Shot are both 163, and
Jeez.
both of them are huge card advantage cards, right? Mark
Mhm.
Shot, it gets you the same tempo. It's 4 mana, 4 damage, correct tempo,
Yeah.
and you get an extra spell afterwards. Unleash the Beast is just like you get 2 5/5 rushes over the course of 12 mana. Like that's an insane amount of and they're all initiative
For one card.
for one card, and it has initiative, so you're not just putting stuff on the board and then getting hit, right? Like you're not
Died.
getting
Yeah.
rushed down. You can fix problems. And in a meta with very few, like outside of Rogue, very few amounts of initiative. Well, Rogue and Warlock. Very few cards that give initiative compared to prior metas. These are like things that you want, and they all give card advantage. So now, as Hunter, you're in this weird thing that's happening, right? Where all the cards that you're getting offered a lot, they're leading, and they're both misbucketed in my opinion by Blizzard pretty heavily.
Everything's misbucketed.
So many things are misbucketed. I don't even know where these guys are, but I just remember off the top of my head like fourth bucket or just something low for the top cards in Hunter. And so you're kind of pushed to take these cards. You get a lot of value out of them, and you don't have a 2-drop problem because you're just forced into 2-drops, right? Like Collins was saying before, even as Priest, as Hunter, you're gonna get even more 2-drops. And so you just end up with this like good base for a pretty controlly or late game mid range or whatever, just a slow Hunter that can compete in card advantage with the best of them out there. Yeah, like it's a weird time for Hunter.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm not usually on that side in Hunter. Like I'm more like I'm not as fast as Merps would normally do a Hunter, but I'm definitely fast mid range Hunter. And now I'm like, yeah, I'll do slow mid range. This is where the cards are leading me now. Yeah. So, how has your success with Hunter been?
It's really nice. I remember the first 2 runs I did. I didn't get a Mark Shot or Unleash, and I was like, well, okay, I guess I can't play Hunter. then I drafted some off stream. I was like, whoa, this is way better. So I realized I just got unlucky the first 2. But if you get the tools, there's a lot of they added a lot of really good control options with the Mark Shot, the Unleash, and the Call of the Wild, just to grind it out and go a little bit late game. If so you can, the issue with control Hunter is that you couldn't go card for card. You'd always just end up running out of cards to play, and then they would kill you.
Because your hero power has no card advantage at all.
Yeah. Because your hero power in control as a Hunter doesn't do anything.
Yep.
So you need your cards to be worth it, right? But with the Mark Shot, with the Unleash, you can now start like competing with the other value classes and getting there, and then you drop a Call of the Wild. I called it Exodia. Just drop Exodia and win.
Yeah. Call of the Wild is definitely like a win game card so many times, and yeah, and it's in the same bucket. So you look at the top bucket. Hunter has no top half like of top bucket cards. It's all bottom top first bucket, and your normal cards that you want for an aggressive hunter, like kill commands and Eaglehorn Bow especially, they're competing with your card advantage cards like Savannah Highmane, which you really freaking want, and Call of the Wild, right? Animal Companion is also thrown in there, which makes it like I almost never take Animal Companion. But like if you're desperate for threes, and sometimes you are these days, right? Like you'll take an Animal Companion.
Sometimes, yeah.
But otherwise, if you go Control Hunter and you can fill out your curve with other stuff, you get really good options at the top here. Your Mark Shots in the top of the second bucket. Unleash the Beast is in the top of the third bucket. And these cards may not move because enough people are going to play aggressive-y kind of hunters that, like, I don't think Unleash the Beast is going to be picked all that often.
That's true.
If anything, it may go down in buckets. Like, I don't know. I don't know who's picking this card, like, if enough people are. Because it's a weird way to play Hunter, right? It's like a counterintuitive way to play Hunter.
One thing that I always think about that makes classes really good in the meta is if good cards are in different buckets. That's always. So that means that you get an option to get, you have options to get good cards no matter what bucket you're being offered. And a lot of like when the bucket was initially designed, they put all the best cards. Like I remember a lot of classes had all of their removals in their same bucket, right? So it was extremely hard to get like AoE removal or something because they were always together. So you only get to see it like once or twice a draft. But Hunter is in a good spot right now where a lot of their good cards are in different buckets. So you get a bucket, there's a good card. You get a different bucket, and there's another good card. So you can kind of just pick up the cards that are like misbucketed, probably, But for now, like you take advantage of it and just take the good cards in all the buckets, and then just kind of win with that style. So that's always something to look for when you're looking at power levels of classes. If they
any other class you've been finding that does really well besides Hunter and Priest?
Mage is obnoxious. I hate it.
Are you doing well with Mage, or are you just annoyed when you face Mage? Because it is the second worst class for me when I'm facing it in terms of how I feel. Rogue obviously worse, but Mage is right up there. But are you having a lot of success with Mage?
Anytime I draft Mage, I get like 2 spells, and one's always the Flame Strike. Right. Every Mage has a Flame Strike, is what I've been saying recently, because it feels that way to me, at least when I fight them, but probably not true. But every time I draft Mage, I get a Flame Strike as well, so I don't know. But it's just that Conjurer's Calling is, I mean, you see it less, right? But it's still super busted and very abusable. And I just don't like the design of this card at all.
Terrible.
But it's just
There's
man,
no getting
I
around
don't.
how terrible this card is in terms of like the design. It's just but one thing I did like is so we know Blizzard also did a rebucketing in this, and Hunter and Conjurer's Calling is the card that moved the most because they had it bucketed in like the 6th or 7th bucket or just something ridiculous.
And now it's the top of the top, right?
Nope, it's the bottom of the top.
Right?
It's the bottom of the top. So yeah, we wanted it in the top of the top so we would not see it. The top of the top has a 50% penalty, so we would not see it. And you would think that's hopefully what Blizzard would do after they realize how badly they screwed up. But at the very least, they didn't just move it up 2 buckets or 1 bucket. Because if they just did that, then it would lose the offering penalty from the 6th, 7th bucket and then still be under bucketed. Now it's in the bottom of the first bucketed, so it doesn't have that penalty. And okay, it's not correctly bucketed. It's like still under bucketed by a little, but at least it's sort of there, right? Like it could have been a lot worse, Collins. Like we were like this close to Mage being as destructive as Warlock, but with way more RNG. So I'm gonna give a little credit to Blizzard here for seeing the problem, getting ahead of it, and making sure the meta is like bad and not terrible.
But put it to the top. I don't care. I don't want to ever see the.
So if you're in the meta and you're wondering why you see so many Conjurers Calling after the patch, it's because it's offered almost twice as much as it was before. So even though it's up against better cards, it's still just insanely powerful. So if it's an auto pick for you, you'll be able to pick it like almost twice as much as you used to be able to.
I don't want to tell people it's an auto pick. It's not an auto.
It's
pick,
not an
guys.
auto pick.
Don't,
it's not. No.
don't do it.
You have to kill your own minion. Like who would do
I know, right? All the time. Who wants 2 9-drops after you play Fist? It doesn't make sense. And then do it again. It doesn't make sense.
What I've been really hating, and I've seen this enough times for me to hate this very, very specific thing, is
Scribe.
Huh? Oh
Scribe?
no. Scribe and Conjurer's Calling is like kind of okay. What is the Big Time Racketeer is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, okay, that one too.
Big Time Racketeer is the 6 mana 1/1 that summons a 6/6 ogre, but the 6 mana is the 1/1. So then you Conjurer's Calling on the same turn too, because it's just 6 mana. This is a turn 9 play. Big Time Racketeer with Conjurer's Calling. You get 2 7 drops,
18 worth of stats,
and then 6/6. Sorry,
you get 3 6 drops.
3 6 drops. Yep.
Yeah, essentially, it's 18.
18 and
mana.
He gets the twin spell back, by the way.
Yeah, so, that I know.
So it's one card. One card for 9 mana is 3 6 drops.
It shouldn't have twin spell.
It shouldn't.
It
should be 4 mana at least.
Yeah. It should be 10 mana. I hate the card. but for sure it shouldn't have. There shouldn't be another charge. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And if they want to make it twin spell, you got to just increase the cost. It's too good. It's I mean, it's also an arena thing where a lot of the too good twin spells are just really big cards. So I guess in constructed or something, like having a card be really big is not, like in terms of card advantage, is not like as big of a deal as in arena. But in arena, these, like we were talking about that hunter card, right? Unleash the Beast. That's also a lot of card advantage. Another one we rated very highly, and I totally stand behind it, is the Forest Aid and Druid, which some people don't even think is a good card, but it's like amazing for me. It just refills your board and twice, and it's really a big card, and it's overpowered a little, but maybe not in constructed. I don't know. This is the same thing with Conjurer's Calling, except Conjurer's Calling adds that nice RNG element that we all love.
I made like a quick review thing.
Mm-hmm.
The only card I really think I got wrong was Miscreant. Blatantly wrong. But it's like the worst one to get wrong.
It's the one that comes out and dominates the meta.
Yeah. But every other card I feel like I got like after experiencing the cards, I feel like I got pretty right. So
yeah. In terms of Evil Miscreant though, like we got it sort of wrong too. We put it up very high. Like we're talking like, one of the top 5 cards in Rogue high. But but then it came out and we're like, okay, fine. It's actually
number
like
1.
Yeah, it's like it's really, really, really freaking up there. It's not even. I just didn't think Coin Evil Miscreant was gonna be a thing.
Me too. Me too. I didn't think it would be so strong coining the mission. It's like, oh, let's coin a 1/5. Oh, that doesn't do anything. I guess I'll win. No. I guess you lose. Actually, crazy how strong that ended up being.
Yeah, and it's warping the meta, but they nerfed it, so now rogues are more in control in terms of overall power level, but in terms of RNG. It's just the design. You can't get away from it. It's like Mage now. This is my big problem with Mage now. Your number 1 cards are new cards.
All RNG.
Yeah, they're Conjurer's Calling, which literally it destroys a minion, summon 2 minions at the same cost to replace it. It's totally random. You don't even get to discover anything. Super random. And you get it doubly, so it's even worse than just random. Like, it is more RNG and higher swing than just random. That's what Blizzard managed to do.
X2.
It's random X2, and then you X2 again because you get a twin spell, so it comes back and you have to cast it again, and it's a synergy card on top of it because you're trying to play it on something that, like you get extra value from destroying it relative to its mana cost. So it's like the absolute, like for a card with no initiative, it's about as bad as RNG can possibly get. And your other card is Messenger's Raven, which
I thought you were gonna say the 8 cost spell.
Oh, that's not as annoying to me as Messenger Raven. It's still very
Really?
bad,
Wow.
but
I that the A cost is way more annoying than the Raven. Though the
really,
Raven's annoying too, but
has the Raven not been like discovering all the freaking
the legendaries,
legendaries
right?
that
Yeah,
are?
yeah. It does. It does do that.
That's what's
But
annoying to me. I've seen Calicos way more than I've wanted to, and Calicos is not like the best card in the game. We don't rate it like terribly high, but if you're discovering it
with
in
the
the late
synergies,
game,
yeah. Yeah.
like yeah, it's a ridiculous card. It's not an amazing card because you can get it early on, and it screws you by not being able to be played. Right? If you're playing this Messenger Raven on turn 5 and you pick a Calicos, that's really damn good. It's just I mean I'm with you. I hate facing Mage. I absolutely hate facing Mage. I hate it as much as Rogue these days, and it's not because it's too powerful. I beat Mages at a probably the same rate as I always beat Mages, maybe a little lower, but it's just not fun. I never know what they're doing. They can do anything at any time, swing everything. Like,
yeah. There's more like I guess like randomness factor. Like you can't really predict how the game's gonna turn out.
mm-hmm.
I would say after like turn 7, like if you haven't won yet and it's like an even match,
Yep.
you don't know who's gonna
Nope.
win. Just just because the amount of things you can do with like 10 mana these days is uh, different.
Yeah. And yeah, Messenger Raven underbucketed. And for some reason, like they didn't move it up. So they rebucketed some stuff and they moved some things up and some things down. I have a whole list here. I'm not gonna go over all of it, but let's just say like some of them moved in the wrong direction. Like they didn't move too many cards, but some of them they're like, oh, let's nerf this some. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wait. It should be buffed. But it kind of makes sense once you take into account that it's based on pick rates.
It's pick rate.
Pick rates.
Man, I want to go off on
Go off on pick rates. I mean, we're done with Mage.
I don't understand like the philosophy. I mean, it's not a philosophy of arena players, right? Like it just shows that like who's designing this is not an arena player. Whoever's making these changes, right? They don't actually play arena because it doesn't pick rate is not the way to balance any system. It just means that the game is going to inherently be unbalanced because they're using pick rate as a factor to judge. But then they also say they want to balance classes to 50%, but they're balancing by pick rate. That just means that there's going to be unbalanced cards like inherently into in the buckets, just so that those classes can have that 50% win rate, right? So it's going to end up being an RNG fiesta of if you get offered those cards that are buffing the classes to the 50% or nerfing it down to the 50%, right? So it's just it's not a philosophy that makes good game this like good choices, right? Because all the good players are going to know what this is like the reason they added a bucket system is to make choices interesting, right? But then the way they're balancing buckets is to make choices uninteresting and obvious for people that actually play the game. So it's two different philosophies not working together to create a functioning system, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to anybody who's good at the arena and wants to have fun while being good at the arena. If you're trying to have fun while being bad at the arena, then that's fine. Or if you're not trying to have fun and you just want to win and when you're good at the arena, I guess that's also okay. Because their argument is like, look, if you know a card is better, you got an edge. That's good, right? Whereas we're like, I'm not too concerned about getting that extra 0.01% win rate so much as I don't want the meta at the top to be filled with your underbucketed cards. Because that's what happens, right? Like when you have eccentric scribe at like whatever bucket it is, and they at least move that card. Okay, so this is the degree to which they move stuff. Okay, the top two cards that we have identified from like the very beginning, and by beginning I mean before anyone was able to play the arena outside of Crypt,
right?
Was eccentric scribe and Hengeclan Hogsteed. In the new update to the tier list, actually Hengeclan Hogsteed went above eccentric scribe by 1 point. But let's just say they're basically both the same. They should be bottom of the first bucket. They are not. Eccentric Scribe got moved up half a bucket. Hengeclan Hogsteed did not move. I just finished up a hunter run for 12 wins with 3 of these guys, and they were just
Hot
insane.
Seed is so good. It's so strong. Then and it synergizes with a lot of
It
being
synergizes
both.
with a lot of things. It's a 2-drop, like a totally solid 2-drop, just played without any initiative. It's a removal later on. It's just it's silly. But not even just those two. Dollar and Crusader didn't even get moved, and that's like in my book the most obvious card to get moved. Dollar and Crusader has Divine Shield. That's it. It is. There's no thinking involved in this card. Like they put it out there as a super basic common card, and then they misbucket it, and then all the people who are drafting it. These cards, by the way, also are the highest neutral win rate cards, along with Shovel Fist.
Okay,
Which
I was one. I was about to say.
Yeah. Oh no. It has nothing to do with with average players using these cards and not getting good results out of them. Especially for something like Dollar and Crusader. Like, there's not a lot of fancy stuff you do with this guy. It's just good. But because the average players, so this is what you were talking about before when you're talking about like average pick rate is so much worse than even average win rate. Because in average win rate, at least cards like Dollar and Crusader, Eccentric Scribe, Henchclan Hogsteed, they will redeem themselves. They will not get picked a lot, but even bad players will be good with them because they are just that good and they're not too complicated. But when you go one level down and you go just pick rates, these cards will never redeem themselves.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with how you play it. You're actually making average players worse. And they're going to lose more because you're not like allowing them to have these cards. Because you're putting them in a bucket where they wouldn't be picked like.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I don't know about average players. Do average players like to lose more? Is that more fun to them?
I think so. I think
right? Blizzard thinks so. Because this is what Blizzard is doing. They're telling average players, hey, you lose more, good players win more, and that should be more fun to you, even though good players are like having less fun by winning more. Like, so who's winning in this? Like, no
people that love RNG. Hey, let's go.
Oh my god, the people who don't care at all about anything is potentially winning in this, but if they don't care about anything, then it should not matter what we do, right? They should just be okay in the arena no matter what happens, if they really just don't care about any of this. Once you start caring about anything, none of Blizzard's philosophy makes sense. And it's extremely frustrating that they didn't think of this before, that they haven't thought of this now, that no one is like you said, right? No one is in the arena on that balance team that's looking at it and being like, wow, this doesn't really make that much sense. They're just catering to their hypothetical silent majority without really knowing what the silent majority even like would find fun, right?
There's like what's it called? Unemployed workers. I don't know what they're called.
Unemployed workers? Unemployed?
No. Like unpaid.
Unpaid workers?
Yeah.
Like slaves?
No.
Interns. There we go.
That's the word. Yeah.
Okay.
There's like an intern that plays arena, knows all of this is wrong, and doesn't have the gulls to say.
There we go. Probably.
Thank you.
Probably not. I don't know how good their interns are. But like I don't know. They at this point, there's got to be good ideas going in, and they're just filtering it out, though. Like,
yeah, maybe
it's got to be enough.
It's probably because it's more work, and they don't want to do more. Like they even changed the leaderboard. They don't want to do more work.
Let's move on to the leaderboard. Here's what's happened to the leaderboard. We haven't talked about this before because I usually don't do the leaderboard, and Merps covers it, and Merps is on hiatus now. But they've changed the leaderboard so that it is now 30 runs every 2 months, and every 2 months there's a leaderboard, and these 2 months will coincide exactly with the wild rotation meta. So a whole bunch of sets rotate in, through all of this rebucketing and micro adjust and all of it. They're going to keep counting your wins, and your top 30 runs are still going to be counted towards it, but it's going to happen once every 2 months, so once every mini rotation for the arena.
It's going to be hard for those people that are like super serious on the I don't go serious on the leaderboard, right? But I assure you there are people that are like super focused on doing the best they can to get the as high leaderboard ranking they
Yeah.
can, right? It sucks for them, right? Because they get less of a window to to like refine their things and have a better chance, right? Having more time means that more players, can actually join, right? And it means like there's a smaller window to have that like extremely good win rate, right? Let's
Right.
say like there are people that hit nine win rates, right, and go at the very top, right? That gets a lot harder when the window's bigger, right? You'll get less swingy averages and things like that.
Well, it's top 30, right? Or is it actually average?
It's top 30. I
Yeah,
mean, you
it's
can
top
still
30.
get. I mean, you can still get like 9 wins. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not different,
it's
but
top 30. You'll have more swings if anything because you have more chances to get to the high swings if you play a lot, right? So it favors people who play a lot in terms of like how well they'll place. It like does not favor who play a lot because the people who play a lot probably would rather just have more leaderboard iterations so they can like
yeah,
be on more leaderboards than wait the whole freaking 2 months. Like let's say you get a 30 run average that like hits 9 or whatever, right? You're not gonna repeat that for the next 2 months. So what are you doing the next like however many weeks? Leaderboard basically
yeah,
no longer exists for you. You can do whatever.
for you, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
Whereas on the other side, it does become more inclusive in people who can hit the leaderboard every time. But
I don't
that
like
depends
more
on whether you
inclusive.
want to or not, right? Like I'm just screwing around. I'm gonna be on the leaderboard now, every single like leaderboard. Probably, I hope, because I'll have more than like what is it, like 7.2 or like whatever wins per run it takes to be on the leaderboard. But it'll be really low compared to what I usually get. I'm usually in like somewhere in like the bottom of the like I don't know around like 8 to 15. That's my normal rank. But now I'm gonna be wherever the hell I just like end up because I'll hit the number of runs and I won't care and I'll be playing all sorts of random classes. So I don't necessarily like want to be on the leaderboard for doing this, but it's kind of a compromise where I'm sure some people are happy with it. I don't think this is like the bucketing system where I don't think anyone is happy with it in its state. I think there are probably people who think that
Yeah,
30
yeah,
runs
yeah.
in a
The
month
people
is
that
too
can't
much.
do 30 in a month,
Exactly, but still want to do leaderboard.
yeah.
And that's not like who we are, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners appreciate the change. And yeah.
Yeah, but another thing, it's with the changes, it's hard. You can't get a run without like meta shifts.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a 2 month window where no buckets change, nothing happens. The meta is learned and mastered in the first week. That's not going to happen. So basically, it's just like there's always going to be some RNG in all the lead.
Yeah, it's going to be higher. It's going to be higher swings. And I always go for leaderboard whenever I am going for leaderboard after the meta has settled. Because that's when I think it's more skill testing, and that's when I think it matters more, and that's when I'm more comfortable playing. But now, like, those are not the times in which people have the highest leaderboard averages. People have the highest leaderboard averages when it's much more...
At the very beginning.
At the very beginning, because the meta's softer, and it's more swingy. And so it's just going to, like, all add up to that's the best time to play.
Like imagine someone did 30 runs in the first 2 weeks or the first week of the Rogue, and they got Rogue all day.
High road Rogue.
Yeah, and then you go on the leaderboard, and this dude has a 10-win average. He's like, "Oh, he's so good," and he's just thinking to himself, "I just abused the the Rogue meta during the first week of the expansion law," and everyone's like congratulating him, and he knows the truth.
And the rest of the like 7 weeks don't matter when it comes to the
pretty
top
much.
of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's problems. They haven't fully thought it through, or they don't care to that degree. But when you're talking about leaderboard, you're only talking about the people who care the most now, right? Like, who else are you catering this leaderboard to? So they should probably consider this kind of stuff. But you can tell, right? They have their hands full, like with the leaderboard stuff. They first like just dropped the whole event thing. At some point, they were like trying to do it the right way, right? They're like, oh, when an event happens, we're gonna stop the leaderboard, have a special event leaderboard, and then pick it up again. So there's a leaderboard for each meta type. And then they're like, we're not doing that. We're just doing it by calendar month. And now they're like, well, we're gonna just lump the whole rotation into one leaderboard. they've just gotten to the point where they looked around and said, we can't do our jobs and give people what they want. So this is kind of just the best that we can do, and people are just gonna have to be okay with it, because what they actually want, we can't do at the quality in which it would actually beat this system where we have to do very little. And so why would we try to do that? Like, I think we're getting to the point where Blizzard is becoming very aware of their own limitations. Either that, or they've gotten to the point where they have wildly overestimated their their abilities. It's one or the other, because we won't be here otherwise, right? They either gave up and that's why we're here, or they thought they could do a lot better and they're not.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
All right, let's go back to talking about some classes over here. So what are some of your favorite cards in this meta that we haven't talked about yet? Because we were talking about cards we hate, and we've already hit almost all of mine, which is like,
I know my favorite card, but it's a neutral, and you've already talked about.
What's your favorite card?
From the expansion.
From the expansion,
it's the Hogsteed. Have you looked at the cute little Murloc? When it's golden, its eyes. It's so adorable.
It is a very well designed card from like a flavor perspective. I didn't even realize it dropped a Murloc, and that's why the picture was, until like, I don't know, like the 12th time I used the card. And I was like, why is it dropping a Murloc? And then I looked at the card. It's it's freaking adorable. And I love that it drops a Murloc, because Murlocs are semi-relevant now again.
I've been hit with Toxfin off of the Hogsteed, and I'm just like, oh my god.
Oh my god, you've been hit by that?
Yeah. And you just cry. Just like, no, my fister. Why? That I didn't hit my fist, but I'm just imagining.
Yeah.
But in terms of like other classes, I do really like Unleash the Beast, but we've already talked about that as well. In terms of Priest, I haven't really seen any like super crazy. I guess the Priest Legendary is fun, but you don't see it all. The Madame Lazul.
The Priest Legendary. Oh, Madame Lazul, yes.
Yeah. It's so much it's so much power and information in one slot. You play like it's like let's take a little peek into your opponent's class. Your hand. They have 3 cards. Well, here's everything they have, and then you just take the best thing. It's actually like kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, so. I mean, I have not played with it or against it, but
it's fun.
Very much looking forward to playing with it. It's you see their hand. Like, you're not allowed to do that. That's not a hearthstone.
Another fun card is Sweeping Strikes, because I am the only one that plays Warrior. I fought another Warrior at like 8 wins, and I was like, what the hell? But no one plays around the Sweeping Strikes, so you can get so much value off of the card at the
super freaking high. And I have yet to play with it, so I don't know if we're right or not, but we haven't moved it yet.
It's good. It's because no one plays it. It's good because no one plays around it. Legitimately, people are still like have a Super Collider in their heads. So they legit just they give you like really insane trades. And someone had I had like a 7 attack minion. He had like a 2 attack minion, and then he had like 7 health or like 5 or 6 health minions on the edges, and I was just like, hey guys, this is why this card's good. And I just it was very nice. Oh man, but it's just
I'm waiting for them to actually micro adjust all the rest of the classes, not just Rogue, so I can start playing Warrior. I've just been like refusing to play Warrior up until now because of how bad it is. Oh, we want to talk about bucketing. This is what's happening with Warrior. I'm so annoyed about this, by the way. This is why you can't have bucketing by average player picks. I'm going to tell you the cards that have moved down. They moved the buckets down because people aren't picking this card. Woodcutter's Axe.
Makes no sense.
N'Zotha's First Mate, by the way, is now in the 4th bucket.
Really? That card is like the best card?
Yes. but people aren't picking it anymore.
Okay, it's because it's boring. I mean, in their eyes,
it's because
I
it's
love it.
small, and people are playing warrior still, like very control heavy. Blood to Ichor is moving down, and Brawl has moved up, despite being one of the worst performing warrior cards. Why? Because when you're trying to play control as a warrior, still as if you were in the prior meta, you don't have the cards that it takes to play control. You're gonna favor all the things that do that, right? Like Brawl, like really heavily, because you'll need it for your deck. And
you still lose.
And you still lose because you can't do what you do from before. Like the win rates are not lying here. People are trying to do something and they're not like quite pulling it off, and it's changing all the buckets in these like weird whatever ways. So whenever they micro adjust warriors by the way still losing a lot, right? So they're gonna micro adjust warriors up hard, and then I'm gonna play warrior,
and then you're gonna play it. Yeah, feels okay.
It's gonna be Tempo Warrior ruining the meta, at least.
Yeah, pretty much. The best warriors I have seen are Tempo, where they kill you, and I'm just like, stop it.
Really?
Stop hitting me.
You've seen a warrior that's done something?
I
have yet to see a warrior that's done anything in any of my games. They've all just rolled over and tied in various ways.
He had like 2 copies of the 4 damage axe with Death Rattle AoE.
Death Spite, right? Okay, no, I've been killed by Death Spite warrior before. Okay, not really because they were tempo, just because that's an insane card that should not
insane
exist.
card. Yeah, it does a lot. And then they played I think it was like 3 of the deal 1 get a Lackey.
Oh yeah,
and so they Lackey spammed me.
Oh,
they Lackey.
So they were a rogue.
Yeah, so every class can do that. I mean, well, all the Lackey classes can just kill you with Lackeys. You know? Priest can do that too.
Yeah. But at least, like, my trouble with the Lackeys is that the evil miscreant gives you 2.
You
kind of have the
and
same
the Warlock one also
gives you 2. And that
I wonder why they're number 1 right now.
And they it reduces RNG like enough by giving you 2 shots at like what you need to solve your problems, that it gets rid of the tempo loss like a bit too freaking heavily. Whereas
and they're so swingy.
They're very swingy.
You think, it's a 1 mana card? No. It can't be too bad.
Yeah. But like Sludge Slurper, Improve Morale, Evil Cable Rat, like they're more okay in my book at least. They're still very powerful, but they give you 1 Lackey, and so you're like not swinging as hard. You're doing the normal Hearthstone swing card thing. So okay, the one card we haven't talked about that I absolutely hate, because we talked about the other ones. Like my list.
I bet I know what it is, but
you can take a guess after I finish the rest of my list that I hate was Conjurer's Calling, Messenger's Raven. Those are the mage ones. And then the rogue ones was Evil Miscreant, Vendetta, and Unidentified Contracts. All RNG, all things you can't really play around, all things that cause huge like tempo swings, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one is not RNG.
This one is not RNG. Oh, what is it?
It's Walking Fountain.
It's Walking Fountain. Isn't it sad that you can just like pick out this card and you're just like, this is the problematic one that that ADWCTA is gonna hate, even though it's not RNG and doesn't do anything like the other cards that's been on our hate list. Yep, it's Walking Fountain. That's the Shaman card. And it is, so first of all, it's under bucketed. It's in the bottom of the second bucket. It should be in the top of the first bucket.
The top of the top.
Yep, it's the 8 mana 4/8 Lifesteal Rush Wind Fury Elemental. We rated a 158 from the get-go, which is where we rate Flame Wreath Faceless, which is also in the bottom of the second bucket. Because why not? That's also where Lightning Storm is. And again, bottom of the second bucket. Oh, and Master of Evolution, also bottom of the second bucket. Jade Lightning
is in the this doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Jade Lightning is in the bottom of the second bucket, and it's like not even like pickable.
It's right. I know. It's so weird.
That's silly. Like I need to go there's so much penalty for like picking a Jade deck because of where Jade Lightning is.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. You can't pick it when there's a Walking Fountain.
No. Yeah. Okay, so Walking Fountain is especially problematic because it does the thing that no other cards in this deck in this class does, and it heals you up by completely eliminating one way your opponent could win the game. Completely.
Yeah.
They can't even come back from it. It can't be like,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to make it a little harder on you. This is why, like, the opposite design, Aranasi Broodmother, for example, is a great design, I think, for Arena at least. That's the Warlock card that when you draw it, it's a 4/6 taunt
It
for
heals
6
you for
mana.
4. Okay,
When you
okay.
draw it, it heals you for 6. And it would only
For 4.
be...
For
sorry,
4.
for 4.
If it was 6, I'd love it.
It'd be too good at 6. It's already
it
pretty
would
damn
be
good at 4. And if you draw it early, you kind of just don't play it until like way late because it's super anti-tempo, and you wouldn't have healed for anything, so it's not good. But it's Warlock, so you can just get another card, right? So it's not that bad. On the other hand, once you get it, you get 4 health, which is a good number of stuff to heal. It means if your opponent is like, oh, I need to hit you down, even if they're Hunter, right? You get 2 more turns. That's not necessarily game ending, but it could.
And
be.
it's a taunt.
And it's a taunt, but you have to pay 6 mana to get that taunt down, right? To get an understated taunt down.
Yeah, but it is a taunt. Like if they're trying to kill you, at least you get a taunt as well.
Yeah. So it's overall like a fair way to kind of it splits the difference between like healing immediately and having a undersized like taunt for its mana cost, an under tempo taunt. While not being too bad. Like, I don't feel terrible when someone RNGs it, right? By top decking it or something when I'm trying to like smork them down. I feel bad. I have to do more than I used to have to do, but it was fine. I just like suffered a little bit of bad RNG. With Walking Fountain, I lose the game because they had the card or they top decked the card. Just the card exists and I just lose the game.
Do you like it when someone hits you with a Walking Fountain? You're like, oh well, that sucks. You know, you kill it off, right? Next turn, another fountain, and then you're just like, well, that's the game. Now it's over.
You cannot put this much healing on a card that is just good tempo, and if you do, you can't make it have initiative on the healing at least. Like, I don't know what else to say about this card. It was an interesting design. I didn't have a problem with it until I played against it.
And really? I knew immediately.
You knew immediately it was going to be awful?
Yeah, I knew it.
I knew it was going to be a really good card.
It's because it's a control card. I was like, this is so strong. I was like, what is it? Oh, man.
No, it's like when I saw it, I was like, this is super, super strong. But I didn't think it was going to be like terrible feeling to play against and totally shut something down, and it is. And so now I'm it's also under bucketed, and it's the 3rd highest rated Shaman card, and it's bucketed in the lower 2nd bucket, and Shaman has a lot of really good cards. So yeah. This is my problem card. Any other card you hate that we haven't talked about?
What card from Rise of Shadows?
Yeah, from Rise of Shadows.
That I hate.
Like you either don't like the design or you don't like seeing your opponent have it. Or...
every single Mage card, probably. Can I say that? Is that an option?
You can say it, but I think Ray of Frost.
I hate it.
What?
It's horrible.
What?
It's so annoying. You're trying to kill them. They hit you with the frost, and you forget they have another. Then they hit you with another one, and then they play like Mana Cyclone. They draw 3 cards, and then they get another Ray of Frost, and then I hate everything.
I like Ray of Frost. I like the design. They nerfed. They bucketed like so. They initially over bucketed it by like a little. They put it in like, I don't know, 2nd bucket or just something ridiculously high. And then they moved it down like 4 buckets in this recent bucketing update, and now it's under bucketed.
Have we talked about Vendetta?
I kind of like glossed over it as one of the cards I hate. But no, we haven't dug into.
It's hard. It's so obnoxious when it like back before they nerfed the tri-class, right? And it was basically a 0 mana. Eviscerate every time.
Eviscerate, 0 mana, eviscerate. Yep, double backstab in 1 card. Yep. Nope. It's terrible.
It's a little bit better with the tri-class nerf, but I mean, it's still very easy to get another card if you're drafting for Vendetta. So
yep,
obnoxious.
And it's such a huge tempo swing. 4 mana's worth of tempo, or at least 3 mana's worth of tempo if you're thinking of like
I
Shadow.
think those are the problem cards. I think you talked about the problem cards.
Okay.
I mean, even Shade Equal's not as bad as it's bad. Like it's annoying, but it doesn't feel as horrible as some of the other cards. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go positive here. I'm going to talk about kinds of cards that I think they did a good job of making, and that's actually improving the arena, unlike all these other ones that are ruining the arena.
What is that?
So besides Aranzi Broodmother that I was talking about before, cards that are predictable but do things that you can be strategic with. So in control twin spells, I really like that. Like, that's why I like Ray of Frost. I think it's an excellently designed card because it's well like mana costed, and you have like you have to remember your opponent played it at some point, but it's fair in the way that assuming they're not using it to freeze 2 of your things at one point, and if they are, that's a 2 mana freeze 2 things, which is not like an unfair card by any stretch of the imagination. You know it's coming. You can play with it in mind, and they can play with it in mind. It has that like extra element of strategy to the game on both sides. Same with Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire even better design.
Yeah, okay, Rapid Fire is a good design.
Because like what do hunters need, right? What do all classes who can't ping need? Pings. What does this card do? Gives you a ping for like a pretty expensive ping, and it costs a card, but you only get it twice. But it's there, right? It solves a problem. And I like that you could turn it into reach. That's
Desperate Measures is also really good. Design.
Desperate Measures, very good. Even though it's like very RNG, but it's like you just want a secret, right? Like you're rolling with it, and it's only 1 mana. So after you play it, you can then set up your board to how you like the secret. Blessing of Ancients is another one that I really like. That's the Druid
card
one.
Is that?
The Druid one that gives +1/+1 to all your minions,
okay.
But it costs 3 mana.
I think the Forest is strong.
The what is really strong? Uh-oh. I think we lost Kyle.
A particular week.
Oh,
but
no.
I feel like it's...
You're back. You're back. Say your sentence again. You cut off for a
little
bit.
I said I think the Forest State is too strong.
Yes.
I think it doesn't feel that bad right now because Druid is particularly weak. But if the meta shifts and Druid is now like in the front, you're gonna really understand. You know, you're really gonna feel like, oh God, what does this card do? Back. So I just think like it's like under the surface.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
like people know it's good, but
people are sleeping on it right now because they just don't like Druid right now. But I haven't found Druid to be weak at all. I drafted a really strong Druid. It went really far. It went like 12. And then I drafted a really weak Druid, and it still got 9 wins. So I like those are my only 2 experiences with Druid. So I think people are just kind of playing Druid wrong, or maybe drafting Druid wrong. But it's like it's also not hard to like draft or play Druid right now.
I think you can always like if you want to figure out how people are playing classes, just look at the percentage of like what's the most popular.
That's
right.
Fair.
And you can kind of like Dreamway Guardians for Druid is the 3rd most picked Rise of Shadows card, which doesn't make sense to me at all.
I mean, it's a decent card, but
Life Weaver is in 16% of decks, which I don't think
really
it's so hard to trigger this ability. People are trying, right, and they're just not getting it done.
I had it in my bad Druid run, and it triggered exactly once.
Once, right? Yeah.
But I also didn't like draw it too often, so it's not really its fault. And even if you don't trigger it, it's a 3 mana 2/5. It's not the end of the world. Especially if you're buffing it, right? Especially if you have a lot of those +1/+1 buffs.
Now cards like Raven 73%, Evil Miscreant 66, Walking Fountain 63. You know, that's what you can learn. Yeah.
And the other kinds of cards that I think are fair are not just like in control twin spell cards, which I say it's Rapid Fire, Ray of Frost, Blessing of Ancients. But I also like the ones in which you know what you're getting. So the opposite of Messenger's Raven is Bronze Herald.
Bronze Herald, yeah.
That's a great card. Why? Because Dragon Synergies are barely a thing, so it's not too swingy. and it's 3 mana. It's a paladin card, 3 mana, 3/2. You add 2 4 mana 4/4 dragons to your hand on death rattle. It's very in control. When people like play it against me, I'm like, I never feel too bad about it, but I recognize that they have a whole bunch of cards now.
Oh, that reminds me. I played Bronze Herald. I killed the Bronze Herald or whatever, right? Then no lie, they played 3 what's it called? The 1 mana give all of your +1/+1.
Oh, cards. Smuggler's Runs?
Yeah, they played 3 Smuggler's Runs in a row. And I was just like, are you kidding me? And then they just proceeded to drop like, what was it? A 7/8 apple bomb.
Oh.
Oh man, I was like, is this real life?
When you get those cards to work, they're so good. But
like, he still lost. But it was like I was sweating. Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, I was like, if that deck doesn't work, well, then Smuggler's Run is not a card on FIFA.
I mean, Smuggler's Run right now and Grime Street Outfitter, they're not good right now. They're over bucketed. So you're giving up way too much as Paladin to get those. Like I've been recommending against drafting them since I saw what buckets they've been in. But yeah, Bronze Herald, and in the same line, Acorn Bear, same deal, right? You know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah, that card's really good.
It's a solid 1-drop too, and you get 2 1/1s out of it. Like it's nice. Yeah, those are the well-designed cards that I like. A card that I actually like that I didn't think I would like. What do you think of Haggis Scheme?
The Shaman card, right?
Yep, yeah. The Shaman Scheme, and it's
I thought it'd be OP.
Yeah,
we thought it'd be kind OP of too. Is, but sometimes when you top deck it, it's like, well, this is useful. Yeah, so it has a drawback in terms of a lot of times when I draft it, I keep it in my hand, right? Just in your opening hand.
Yep, you keep it in your opening hand, and then you have what is it, 5 mana, like Twisting Nether whenever you want.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's like the optimal. What about Witch's Brew? The Echo card. That's not an Echo card.
Oh, I really like it. I think it's a very fair way to heal stuff.
Just heal 20.
Yeah, like
the problem is it's outclassed by Fountain, like completely. So
yeah,
it's kind of hard to like. Why draft Brew when you can draft Fountain? Be on the board.
What can they do? So what can Blizzard do to fix these problems? Right, like we identified how Mage and like I think it's interesting, right, that we identified how Mage and Rogue are terrible in the arena right now, and that like Shaman is Walking Fountains being like terrible for Shaman, but the class that's actually like the top of the meta right now is Warlock, and we barely said like too much. Like yeah, okay, Abyssal should be the top bucket, but once you put Abyssal in the top bucket and then you like micro adjust Warlock, like you're done, right? Like Warlock's not actually that terrible to face at that point, but Mage is not even good right now. Like, Mage is okay. It's, like, doing very normal stuff. It's, like, 50% win rate-ish. And we hate it. We hate facing against it. It's kind of ruining the meta. Rogue is still kind of ruining the meta, even though it's at 50% win rate now. So what do you, like, what can Blizzard do about Mage and Rogue? And what can they do about Shaman, which could be a little different?
It's more about their design philosophy. They like adding RNG elements into their game to make it not related to chess. Like, they like having moments of RNG that can be highlighted, like highlight moments. Oh, he did this, and oh, look at that. He had like a 10% chance to hit effect, and he got it, and that's what turned the game around for him to win. Yeah, isn't that amazing? Right? The problem is in the arena that that doesn't really work that well. It's like, well, look at that. So he had a 5% chance to win here. And oh, look, he hit the 1 in 20 dice. Oh, good for now he wins. Oh, that was so fun. I love that. No, it has the opposite effect.
Like arena's random enough by the nature of the game that you don't want the extra super insane randomness on top of that. Yeah, and but what could I don't know. Like I'm trying to put myself in Blizzard's shoes, right? Like, as a balance designer, like, and I think I'm a good balance designer, and I think
they should fix the buckets first and foremost.
So yeah, first they fix the buckets, right? you make Conjurer's Calling show up half the time that it does now on the very top bucket, along with like Fireball and like Polymorph and your Flame Strike, like where it belongs. You move Messenger's Raven up to a really high bucket, bottom of the first, or maybe even also the top of the first bucket. And I think you're done. Like, I think they can fix Mage so easily.
I think the buckets is like a really nice like design idea. It's just not implemented efficiently enough.
Yeah.
Because a lot of problems you can make go away. Like just by moving the buckets and like if there's a problematic card, make it appear like 10%, than it does now. Oh, no one's gonna care about it because you never see it. Right? It's like a lot of the cards in the 7th bucket, right? You never complain about any of those cards because you don't see them enough to complain about them. You see them once in a blue moon, and then you think to yourself, "Oh yeah, that card exists,"
right?
And then you're like, "Oh, I'm effed," right? That it's kind of the power of the buckets, but it's not being utilized enough. And with the meta changing every 2 months, they don't have a dedicated enough team or something to consistently work on improving it. Because right now they're using robots and code, but the code isn't effective, right? We've been experiencing how the code fixes the draft side of the arena, and it's not doing so hot in my opinion. Maybe they're happy with the results they have right now, but I would argue that you talk to a lot of other like consistent arena players, and you're like, "Well, no, this isn't how I would do things, or how it should be done."
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the bucket system is not like inherently bad. It's more that they've done things with the bucket system. It goes in a weird design philosophy, and even within their design philosophy, I don't think they're like hitting their goals because they don't understand what's going on in the arena. Like I'm always like every time I think about this, I'm like I could put myself into their shoes and make a excellent meta even with these cards. It will not be the ideal meta because these cards are really bad, but you can make the problems go away and create an overall good meta for the arena that will be fun for everybody, including the average player. And Blizzard's just not doing that. And there's a place for stats. There's a place for using algorithms. I certainly can't complain about algorithms. I freaking make one. But there's also a place where you need somebody who knows what they're doing to guide the algorithm, to make sure that a good result is happening rather than just letting a computer do a thing and assume the results are going to be good. And they don't have that person. And I thought that Chalky was going to be that person, but either he is not, or they are not letting him do anything with that kind of philosophy, right? They're forcing him to do a different type of philosophy. And this is what we're ending up with. So the more I look at the meta, especially now that they've turned Rogue into normal levels of bad, with the micro adjust, the more I'm convinced it's fixable. And, and not necessarily by Blizzard in their current state, but that it's not a fundamentally unfixable problem with their existing like kind of tools. It's just a matter of whether they're going to do it or not, and how fast they're going to be able to do it. But yeah, like take Evil Miscreant, right? You just put it in the right bucket. Unidentified Contract, I don't even know why it's not in the right bucket. That was something that literally every single person in the arena, out of the arena, just every single person, you don't even have to have arena experience, looked at this card and was like, bonkers insane. And then it got bucketed, and they're like, this is not as good as Assassinate. Clearly, Unidentified Contract is 1 mana more than Assassinate, and when you need it in a hard removal, is lower mana cost, so you can play it earlier to remove those really giant 4 mana 7/7s we have in the game. I don't know, like these kinds of unthinkable things that they do. Once they get all that under control, I think it'll be fine, and I think they'll get there. I don't think they like are so bad that they won't get there. But if they
So
get there
the issue, I feel like they're gonna get there 2 weeks after the expansion starts every time.
two weeks,
That's.
2 weeks.
I mean, 2 months.
Oh
2 months.
wow,
2
you have so
months.
much hope, Collins.
I my different the hope changes dramatically if you listen to the original. 2 months after they release the expansion or they change the format, that's when they're gonna fix.
Because I'm like 2 weeks. You're looking at Tuesday. That's 2 days from now. That's 2 weeks. But yeah, I would say it'll take like 4 weeks at best, 6 weeks maybe to fix everything to the point in which that'll be pretty good.
See, but even the last expansion, right? When it swapped, it wasn't fixed at that point. I wouldn't argue. I would not say that the buckets were correct when we went to the new expansion. So
yeah, that's true.
It's just like from the track record, I don't know if their bucketing system is if they're gonna get it to a point where it's fixable because their philosophy doesn't work.
Yeah. I'm assuming that they have the correct philosophy. When they don't have the correct philosophy, like now, it's just never gonna happen.
I mean, they've told us their philosophy though.
They have. They've been very upfront about it. Like something that Blizzard's done very well, and I know I haven't given Blizzard pretty much any credit in this Rise of Shadows and rotation meta system, but I give credit where it's due. Blizzard's communication has been top notch this expansion and this wild rotation. They came out with buckets on day one. They freaking changed the buckets, and they told us how they changed it on the day that they actually released the buckets. They've been Ixtar's been active on Reddit, just answering questions and just saying, "Hey, yeah, I hear you guys." Like communication has been excellent to a level that we have never seen before from Blizzard.
Okay.
It's just
I will agree. I'll agree there.
Yeah, right. That's give credit where it's due, right? Things are looking up. Blog posts are happening. I mean, the bad part is that what they're communicating is on a spectrum between things we don't like and things that are objectively wrong. But they're communicating them to us.
Hey guys, I've got some more bad news for you.
I'd rather hear it than have to dig through stuff to find it out. There's at least that part is happening. But that's the part that you don't need to know anything about the arena to get right. That's just a part about being a communicative game dev and a development team. And it's good. It's good that they finally gotten to the point where I feel satisfied with their level of communication, which because they started at nothing. And then they went to oh, this is still not very good, but you're starting from such a low point. Pat on the back, thanks for trying, keep going at it. But now I really think they got it. I have no more demands or asks for communication. They're doing a good job. Now it's just substance, right? And I think it hits the whole theme where all the low hanging fruits for Blizzard have finally been picked. Now they got to step it up on the substantive side and show us that they actually know what they're doing on a deep, balanced, substantive level, and that they want to do this. And they're kind of we don't really want to do this, and also when we try, we're not capable.
I have this feeling in the gut of my stomach that their code is so bad. that their code is it's so hard to implement anything besides new expansions because of all the little tangled mess of a web they've created in their code that it's just well, we can't actually work on tournament mode because we'd have to fix the whole game first. We don't want to invest that much. So I that's kind of I just fear that is their current situation, and they're just they can't say that, but it's it's and every day they're well, are we gonna work on it? Nah. Let's just work on the new.
I hope that's not true. I don't know. I think there's a lot of evidence for what you're saying. I just really hope that's not true because this game, it's so it was such a big thing, and even now it's a bit people are oh, Hearthstone is dying. Okay, so you were a game that everybody played at some point, and now half or a third of what your peak is. That's still a really freaking major game in the market. That's still what games aspire to be, and they have such a good foundation of everything. And hopefully they're through their growing pains and transitions when Ben Brode left, that they they can do stuff with it. Like, I don't want to see this game keep going down this spiral that they've been going down for the last year or so. Like, it's not fun to be a part of, and it doesn't have to happen. And Blizzard has shown in the past that they are able to take games that are in this spiral and stabilize and even bring them back to like some degree of like more popularity than their bottom and like sustain it, right? Like, they've done excellent work with WoW up to a certain point.
And Overwatch.
Overwatch as well, although Overwatch is a pretty recent game, so that was more of a like, let's fix this now immediately. This can't be happening. But yeah, so yeah, like Blizzard as a company, I've seen do this enough times that I don't think it's like the end of the line for Hearthstone by a long shot, or even the end of the line for the arena. I think they're gonna figure it out at some point that what they've been doing is just not working. You know, let's not say wrong. Let's just say they tried something and they'll realize that it's not giving the results that they wanted to. It may take a few more months to gather that data, whatever, and that they'll fix it more months from then. But we're just kind of in and out, right? Like, I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel in the close range. Like, I see it like a year from now. I don't see it months from now. That's what I am very hung up on. Like,
I mean, a lot of things would need to be done in order to kind of deal with the current problems. So
yeah. All right. Well, you want to end it on a slightly happier note of something? Anything? What have you got, Collins? Lift us up before we end this podcast.
Lift us up.
Lift us up. You've been pretty negative today, and I needed you to kind of dull my negativity, and you've been feeding it a bit more than I thought you would.
I've had some struggles today. You know this. Oh man. I mean, people are asking. Let's get Colin some like they don't. What's some issues that were going on, but in terms of positivity, I can hit you with that. It's Easter, right? It's time to remember, the happy moments that no matter what you're going through, we can always, find joy in the little things, and be thankful of what we have, because we're all trying to live. We're all doing okay. We're all living this life together as one big human community, and the best we can do is support each other through our ups and downs. So I say yes, let's do that. Let's stay strong, stay humble, stay happy.
There we go. That's an excellent message. Hogsteed may be bucketed too low for a good meta, but we get to enjoy more little Murlocs that come out of the Hogsteeds, right? That's where we're at right now. So Educated Collins, everybody. He has Twitch, he has YouTube, he has probably other things. I'm gonna let you tell us what stuff you have.
I don't have other things.
You don't have other things. Okay. Well, he has Twitch, and he has a YouTube, and he has a Twitter. Follow him definitely. And he is just a very very high contributor into the arena community, and we're lucky to have him here today. And we're lucky to have him join us for a run afterwards, which we will put on the YouTube. If you guys watch the Arena Coop a lot, Merps is not around, so the Arena Coop series is not happening. But whenever we have a guest now, it does mean that I will try to hold them for longer and get a co-op out of them on Sundays. So yeah, that's I think that's a wrap for the Lightforge, and we'll end on a very uplifting note of hope and enjoying what we have here in this arena, and the absolute certainty also, right, that regardless of how much better it's going to get better whenever Blizzard does something more in the next patch, in the next whatever, right? It will just keep getting better.
Yeah, things have changed, right? There's no more MC tech, so
Yeah.
I'm always like, every time I think I'm sad, I'm like, there's no more MC tech. Yes. So I'm okay.
All right. Until next week, when we will hopefully have a different guest as well. And
what do you mean, hopefully? Hey.
Well, hey, if we don't have a different guest, it's not going to be like, it's going to be just me by myself talking again, and that's what I'm trying to avoid.
I mean, if that happens, just let me know. I'll
Okay,
pop
okay.
it.
We'll keep you as the default
Emergency.
emergency Lightforge co-op partner. If you're agreeable to that, that would be awesome. But I won't hold you to it. Don't worry. Until next week. This is the Lightforge signing off. This is ADWCTA, and that is
Collins.
Educated Collins joining us today. See you guys next week, and enjoy the arena.
Yeah.